What is going on, y'all? Welcome to NFL with Kyle. And today we're going to be ranking the best new quarterback wide receiver combos for the 2024 season. I was only ranking new additions. So CJ Stroud-Stefon Diggs, as hinted at in the title, would count. Would Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson count? Because technically it's their second year. I guess you could say no. So Aaron Rodgers, Mike Williams would count. I'm going to give a pass to the Aaron Rodgers one. Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. All of that's going to be really good. We're going to get right into it, and I'm going to rank them in order. And there's, I think, a new guy in Atlanta that might make the list as well with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. We're going to talk about the NFL news that's been going on throughout the day today. All of that and more on the Only Football podcast. This is NFL with Kyle. Look, I can't keep track of what the Only Football podcast. It's our other podcast, but this is NFL with Kyle. So I'm going to hit you with a lot of Broncos on the intro video.
There's only 4 words. This one's for John. This one's for Pat.
All right, so welcome back again, and Bill, thank you for being here. While I had the intro video, I took a drink of water and spent the entire minute dying. I think I was able to pull it together in time, besides a tear and a couple drops of water. But thank you guys for being here. And a quick shout out to Tom Grossi, who is over $132,000 to St. Jude's going on his world tour. Super happy to say that I've been rated by him. I love everything that he's doing. I like that he is also kind of putting I don't want to say pressure, but just encouraging everyone else to also be giving and chaotic good, which is funny because chaotic good, the first time I heard that was actually not from Tom Grossi. The first time I heard that, there was a person that was a hippie, and I was a hippie myself at the time, and I was on the beach in Miami, and this person that I ended up being friends with, and we went to a Tony Robbins conference, and she slept with rocks, just really just all into nature and all that stuff. But she would always, there was this bridge that separates downtown Miami and Miami Beach. And there's a free bridge, but then there's a more expensive, less traffic bridge. And she had a good amount of money. She worked for Medtronic, medical devices company, and she was in charge of the communications department for all of Latin America. Really well educated, went to Villanova, was doing really good. But anyway, she would always pay for the car behind her, and she would always say chaotic good. She would call it chaotic good, just being good chaotically, randomly, just the fire going. And she would always say she would be like, give without any expectation. That was her big thing too. You don't give to see a reaction in the review mirror. You just give, and that's it. So I'm really happy to know somebody else that uses that word chaotic good. And Bill said, I got my tour shirt from him yesterday. I got a green one for the Packers, Kyle. That's awesome. They didn't have an orange option, or I would have gotten you one. You would think that he would have an orange option, considering that his friend Brandon Perna is a Denver Broncos fan, and but I appreciate the thought, Bill. Speaking of orange teams, let's talk about another blue and orange team, Rick's Bears. Now, there's a player that is still in the NFL. It's a miracle. He's going into his 19th season, and he just re signed with the Bears. Okay, we're talking about none other than former first round selection, Mercedes Lewis, who was drafted by the Jaguars in the first round. Lewis spent the 2023 season, that was last year for you guys that are a little slow. He spent last year in Chicago. He broke a tie last year with Jason Witten and Tony Gonzalez for the most seasons played at the tight end position. So, as far as durability, Jason Witten and Tony Gonzalez, I mean, those are the guys that you think of. Now, Mercedes Lewis is in this category. He turned 40 on May 19th, making him the second oldest player in the NFL behind Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback, not taking anything away from him, but it's a lot easier to play in year 19 when you don't take that many hits. Mercedes Lewis is a guy that's going to hit you. He is, at this stage of his career, mostly used in run support. And I think it's a good move for the Bears to have a veteran presence in this young Rome Odunze, Caleb Williams, DJ Moore going only into year 2 with the Bears, Keenan Allen going into his first year with the Bears. There's a lot of new going on. It's a lot of good, but I think it just makes sense to have that guy that's been, a coach on the field for, however many years at this point, for Caleb Williams and for that offense. It's going to be looking for kind of that veteran leadership to lean on. One of the coolest things in my mind that I got to see was just, you got this guy that's in the room that's ascending to be a really high level player that has Mercedes there to lean on to see what kind of professional he is, the mentality he brings, all of that stuff. This was Luke Getsy in December. Those intangible things are what had me like, I don't want to say begging, but this dude's going to make a difference, an impact. And on top of it, he's out there doing his job at an elite level at his age. And I think that second part is really important. Like, you can have the guy that, has the coach on the field, the mentality, the veteran, but at the end of the day, there's only a 52-man roster. And if you're not good enough to actually justify taking a spot on that 52-man roster, then all that other stuff doesn't really matter, because he's not a coach, he's a player. And the 52-man roster is for players. But once in a while, you get these best of both worlds where a player has been playing, as long as he's been playing, but at the same time, he's playing at a high enough level to justify taking one of the 52 spots. And that's why you've only seen 2 others do it this long, in Jason Witten and Tony Gonzalez. Lewis spent the first 12 years of his career with the Jaguars before being drafted with the 28th overall pick in 2006. He totaled 375 receptions for 4,500 yards and 33 touchdowns with the Jaguars. He spent the next 5 years with the Green Bay Packers, where I remember him mostly, where he caught 57 passes for 582 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I was going to Jaguar games in this time frame, 2006, 2005, 2007. I think we moved from Wisconsin to Jacksonville, Florida in 2002. So that would have made me like 12 years old, something like that. Yeah. So never went to any Packer games until I lived in Florida, weirdly enough. So we didn't have money like that to go to a Packers game. But this is good. This is stability. This is exactly what the Bears need, especially right now. When you see tight ends There's not that many of them that are able to play at a really high level. And some players have all of the tools, but they don't have the the mental fortitude or the want to put the work in that's required. Like, because your body, man. I told this story, I think, on this podcast, but my dad's he worked with a guy. He was a golf pro, and his brother played in the NFL. And one of the things that I got to see at a young age was the side of NFL players that we don't get to see unless you know somebody that's in the NFL, or you're just older and you understand how nutrition works and all that stuff. Maybe that's your lifestyle. But for the average Joe, like, I don't think people understand just how much work goes in to playing an entire season and then turning around and doing it again and doing it again and doing it again and again and again and again and again. It is all, I think the Netflix documentary Quarterbacks, I think it helped give us a pretty good insight to what that's like. But to do it for 19 seasons is ridiculous. I mean, we had a guy just yesterday that had all the talent in the world. John Gruden called this young man the most talented or the most athletic player he had ever coached. Darren Waller. The New York Giants tight end Darren Waller called it a career yesterday. 31 years old. So not super young, but also it felt like his best football was still there on the field. He discussed his decision to retire in a video posted on YouTube, saying that a health scare he experienced in November gave him clarity about his life. And if you have noticed, he is diving into music now. He's a big music guy. I think he had a new rap song that he just released. So I'm going to be honest. His music is very bad. A lot of auto tune, not good. But at the end of the day, he's going to do what he wants to do. And right now, it seems like it's music. Waller detailed a very scary situation, so let's not undermine the health issue, during which he struggled to breathe and ultimately spent 3.5 days in the hospital, unable to stand up. He couldn't use the restroom or feed himself. Okay, so Waller didn't disclose the exact nature of the illness, but this is a very, very interesting, kind of alarming situation, right? If I couldn't, stand up and I had to spend nights in the hospital, getting out onto the football field would be probably not on the top of my priority list. And on top of that, we just talked about how hard it is, whether it's injuries or a genetic health issue. It's just so hard to play in this league for 19 seasons. This is what Waller said. I come out of that experience and I'm sitting in the hospital and I go back to my daily life and I'm like, pretty clear. I almost just lost my life. I don't know if I feel like if I would have died, I would have felt great about how my life was going if I died at that time, which was interesting because a lot of players that maybe have an experience like this put together their best NFL season. But what this moment in this health concern showed Waller was that football wasn't something that he felt like his mission was, on earth any longer. Okay. Now he could be using all this just to, nobody give him a hard time about retiring, but ultimately it's his choice anyway. But um it's just crazy. Somebody with so much talent, the most talented people, like as a football junkie, like it always pains me to see like, oh my God, when you meet somebody that's like 6'4", just jacked, you're like, you play football? And they're like, no. And you're like, God, if I had your body, like, like, what do you mean you don't play football? You look at you. But, it's their choice whether they want to play this game or not. And even though Waller does make me feel that way, if it, remember Marilyn Rowe, I think his name was, he was a safety for Florida State, the best safety in the nation. I think this was 2014. He opted not to go to the NFL, he would have been a clear first round selection. This guy was that good. But instead, he wanted to be a neurosurgeon, and he was a genius. Just some people are really good at multiple things, but in Waller's case, he's not that good at music. So maybe he will either get better at music or find something else to be more excited in, or but just better at. And Bill said, "Holy crap! I didn't know it was that bad. Now I have to watch it." Kyle, thanks. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I hope everything works out for Waller. He's in a rough place, and I only want the best for him. Yeah, and I think when you're a fan of a team that has a player going through something, depending on how close you are to the organization, like I know I'm extremely close. I don't miss press conferences. I watch Broncos every single day during my lunch break. I see what happened in practice, what the news is, even if it's just, Broncos banter that's really not informative. There's always Broncos going on. So if there's a player that is just having issues, it might not be as noticeable to the public, but you notice as a fan. I mean, I could tell when stuff was going on with Judy, when he was having off the field issues, but you could just tell that there was a focus that wasn't there. And sometimes when somebody is not locked in, it's a little more noticeable. Um, when you care deeply, right? And especially if all 11, all 10 players on the field are locked in and there's one that's not, you're going to have that contrast. So I think people probably close to Waller have been, you know, identifying this, and everybody just wants the best for him. He's been open about his struggles with addiction, his sobriety and rehab, and he had an overdose in 2017 and how that helped him turn his life around. And he vowed to use his story to help others and other people that maybe struggle with drug addictions themselves. Um, he also posted snippets of his video on Instagram saying, um, there are actually, this was the Giants statement Sunday. I wrote it down here. We have great respect for Darren as a person and player, and we wish him nothing but the best. Okay. So, like I said, this news is hardly surprising to Giants fans. He stayed away from the team's offseason this whole entire time while he contemplated his future. He bypassed a potential $200,000 workout bonus and now a base salary of $10 million for the upcoming season, and that is just a lot of money to turn down, man. That's a lot of money. $10 million, shit, 200 grand to work out. I would be pumping iron every day, getting as jacked as I can. Man, that's a lot of money to lift weights. If the Giants can get 11.9 million in cap savings this year with Waller as a post June 1 cut. Okay. So that's pretty good. 11.9 million in cap savings for the Giants. The Giants were expecting an answer by its mandatory minicamp, which is taking place Tuesday and Wednesday. The Giants now get to move forward with Lawrence Cager, and Danielle Bellinger, and a person that I live streamed while he was getting drafted, Theo Johnson. At the time, I thought it might have been Cade Stover, but it was Theo Johnson. Waller was traded to the Giants from the Raiders for a third-round pick in March of 2023. He spent the 5 previous seasons with the Raiders. He had a pair of 1,000-yard receiving yards, and he made it to the Pro Bowl in 2020 when he had his best year, 107 catches and almost 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. He went to Georgia Tech, and he was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens as a receiver in the 6th round. But his time in Baltimore was rocky. There's actually a story about Waller where I think it was Lamar Jackson threw him a ball and he went way up and snagged it. And Lamar was like, I guess we can't let that guy leave the team. and then he left the team and was balling out with the Raiders when he was signed off of the Ravens practice squad to the Raiders in the 2018 season. In his second season with the Raiders, that's when he exploded and had his, career years. Um, it's still, if you play fantasy football, you know that he dealt with a lot of injuries, in particular hamstring issues that kept him off the field a lot. He missed a good chunk of time in just almost about every season that I remember, especially these last two seasons. He's missed a ton of the games. So he's one of those players where it's like, if he could be healthy, then if he could be healthy and he could focus, um, and just like not focus, not in a degrading way, like focus, not like that, but just care enough to lock in. If he could have done those two things, I think he could have been maybe, one of the great tight ends that would be remembered. Instead, he's going to move on from football, and his one season with New York saw him finish with 52 catches, 552 yards, and only one touchdown in 12 games. He was the team's leading receiver before he hurt his right hamstring in late October. And I do remember a very promising preseason game with him and Daniel Jones that really set everyone up for a letdown. And Bill said, we need the cap space for sure, talking about the $11.9 million that the Giants are going to end up saving. All right. Speaking of players that have just had focus issues, not locked in, we're going to talk about the player that has been the least no, the most amount of trouble this entire offseason. Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, there was the jaw broken out the nightclub. There was the car situation in Texas. They ended up drafting a wide receiver. You could say that doesn't have a ton to do with Rashee Rice, but just the fact that the Chiefs had depth issues at the wide receiver position, and that's fair. But still, Rashee Rice has not given Kansas City fans or Chiefs Kingdom the warm and fuzzies moving forward. So this is what Rashee Rice has said. He's made his first public remarks about his incredibly awful offseason, saying that his focus is to mature and continue to grow. Okay. Now, his agent probably is like, hey, you can't just ignore this forever. You're going to have to speak out. There's going to be reporters on Saturday. You're going to have to say something, and maybe coached him up a little bit. Hopefully, Rashee Rice believes what he's saying here. He spoke to reporters Saturday while participating in a youth football camp in Kansas City, along with fellow Chiefs wideouts Xavier Worthy, McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, and Marquise Brown. Rice was arrested in April following the situation in Dallas, and then the separate incident in the Dallas nightclub in May. Maybe he just needs to stay out of Texas. He said Saturday that he's working to improve as a person. And this is what he said: I've learned so much from that. All I can do is mature and continue to grow from that. This is a step in a better direction for me. Rice, who has taken part in the offseason practices with the Chiefs, said he has leaned on his teammates for support in the wake of the two incidents and is focusing on the future. And then he said this, which it's like, okay, you said the part your agent told you to say. And then you said the part that this is the part where it's like, that's not accountability. Accidents and stuff like that happen. Okay. This was something I had to learn the hard way. Now, when I was younger, I used to move whenever, I felt like everything was falling apart. And then I realized when I was in Colorado that if you don't change, nothing changes, right? Um, it's something just switched in me when I turned 28, 29, where life just got very, very easy for me. I mean, I was dealing with very stressful things, but I'm talking about just like having laundry, having a routine, not staying up too late, getting good sleep, exercising on a regular basis. Like I found like the kind of like it's almost like I had been fighting the water my whole life, and then eventually I caught the wave the right way, and now it's like, oh, okay, life is a lot easier when you just do the right thing, when you're an honest person, when you show up early, when you look people in when you say what you mean and mean what you say, and you keep your promises, and you don't lie, you don't steal from people, you don't cheat, you just do the right thing, and life becomes very easy. So, like, accidents and stuff do happen, but that's the way my language was when I was in my early 20s and I hadn't yet identified that I was the problem. And it's true, accidents do happen, but what do you do to make sure accidents don't happen again? Right? Some things are definitely uncontrollable, out of your circumstances, out of your control. Racing a sports car is not on that list. So you could hardly call it an accident. You could call it a mistake, but you definitely knew what you were doing. So I don't know about using that type of language when talking about it, but he said he's trying to be positive so that everybody can feel his love and his great energy. Rice was arrested this spring in Dallas and charged with one count of aggravated assault, one count of collision involving seriously bodily injury, and six counts of collision involving injury for his involvement in a six-car crash on the freeway, and he was traveling 119 miles an hour shortly before the crash. This is not an accident. This was definitely intentional. It was a mistake, but it wasn't an accident. He's being sued in Texas for more than 1 million in actual damages and 10 million in punitive damages by two people who say they were injured in the crash. Dallas police are also investigating an alleged May 6th assault at a Dallas nightclub in which Rice is reportedly a suspect. Police have since said that the man who was injured in the assault has asked police not to file charges. The investigation is ongoing. So, don't even know what's going on with that. Sounds like maybe some hush money. I've had my jaw broken outside of a nightclub. I didn't get any of the information from the people that did it. There were no camera footage outside when it happened, and it was a bad. I broke it in three different places. Like, guy pulled out a gun on me. It was a bad night, and I went to a hospital without insurance. They wouldn't treat me. Uh, Sent me to a dentist. This whole time I just have shattered jaw. They wouldn't, treat me at all. No medicine, nothing. And then I go to a dentist, and the dentist is getting ready to give me anesthesia. And then he goes, "I didn't realize you didn't have insurance," and just sends me out. So finally I go to a third hospital. Okay. It's like almost 10 hours after the accident, and they finally are like, "All right, let's do the surgery." And they sent me out with a $50,000 bill. I turned 18 a couple weeks before the accident. So if it would have happened a couple weeks before when I was 17, they actually wouldn't have charged it, I guess, to me as an adult. But instead, they charged it to me. I never paid it. And then 9 years later, it just disappeared like it never happened. But I know for a fact, if I knew that the guy that punched me was Rasheed Rice, or somebody with him, there's no way I would drop the charge unless I got paid under the table in some way. And Bill said, "Don't they have like four or five players in legal trouble?" I can't keep up with all of it. I can't even think of another one right now. Rasheed Rice has taken so much of the spotlight, but I know there's. I think I I can't remember. I don't want to guess, but I can't remember if there was another one or not. But Rasheed Rice definitely needs to mature, learn from his mistakes, and be better for it. But not an accident. It was a mistake. Okay. The Lions forfeit Lions lose final OTA due to impermissible on-field contact. The Lions were caught cheating. I'm kidding. It's not that serious, but the real news is that the Lions have lost 1 day of organized offseason workouts after breaking the rules to an on-field contact during practice the week of May 27th. So this is what the Lions said in a statement Friday night. We take very serious the rules set forth within the NFL's offseason program, and I work to conduct our practices accordingly. We will continue to be vigilant with our practices moving forward. Detroit had organized team activities planned Monday, the final session before training camp next month, but it has been forfeited. The Lions had a 3-day mandatory minicamp earlier this week. I don't really know how this stuff gets leaked or if there's somebody that works for the NFL just makes surprise visits in other people's facilities, kind of like you're getting served or something. But it is I maybe it's probably just something as simple as video footage getting leaked, and it's like, hey, just like the Kirk Cousins thing, where it's like in front of your face the whole time, but you forget the rules because it's like 1 day. Does it really make a difference? But the NFL has to punish you if you break the rules. But there's probably one that is like, this is a slap on the wrist. This isn't a big deal. But uh, anyway, it is news. Here's bigger news, especially when it comes to a slap on the wrist. The Broncos have found themselves in many lawsuits. They got accused of interviewing Brian Flores, and I think Brian Flores said the Broncos didn't even intend to hire him. He was only like he made it seem like the Broncos were only interviewing him to check a box. And they ended up hiring Vic Fangio instead of Brian Flores. But the Rooney Rule, of course, makes it so coaches that are African American have a better chance to get a head coaching job because you have a mandatory obligation to interview a black candidate for the head coaching job. And there are plenty of black candidates out there that are more than capable of being the head coaching job, and they want to make sure that they get a fair shot. And the Broncos end up getting sued, and they say John Elway was hungover and Joe Ellis was they were shit faced or maybe had been drinking, but they didn't even have any interest. But I just couldn't get myself to believe that it had anything to do with the color of his skin because we just fired Vance Joseph, who is a black head coach, who was the Broncos head coach for 2 seasons. So, um, something just wasn't really adding up there. And now the Broncos are in another $500,000 lawsuit by none other than Randy Gregory, who was nothing but a nightmare since we got him. Somebody that had all the talent in the world, but couldn't focus. And when Sean Payton came in, he was our highest paid defender. And he was like, you're cut. Right. It was like week 5, traded him to the 49ers because he was like, look, this is not my team. I'm going to evaluate you and I'm going to put the best players on the field. And if the best player is a 7th-round draft pick and it's not our guy that's getting paid $17 million a year, then that's what it is. And Sean Payton stuck by those words, sent Randy Gregory to the San Francisco 49ers. He was always dealing with a knee injury, not really on the field a ton. And when he was, he left a ton to be desired. And his departure, if anything, boosted the Broncos. It was the right move. Now, Randy Gregory is suing the NFL and the Broncos, claiming discriminations over being fined $532,000, $532.5 thousand for taking medication containing THC for disabilities during his brief time in Denver. In the complaint filed this week in Arapahoe County District Court, the 31-year-old pass rusher, who now plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, said he was prescribed dronabinol for social anxiety and PTSD, but was denied accommodations to treat those disabilities with that medicine. The NFL and Broncos both declined to comment on Gregory's lawsuit. when reached by the Associated Press on Friday. The NFL no longer suspends players who test positive for THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the chemical in THC that gives you the psychoactive effects. Um, we have some right here we can test out just to see. Yep. Just kidding. But seriously, the NFL no longer suspends players who test for this, which is a big step, especially because NFL players should have access to something like this, something that is not a narcotic medicine and something that doesn't destroy their liver, something that is relaxing, something that is can be used for a wide variety of medical reasons, something that should not be illegal in the first place. If anything, and everybody knows this, but if anything, making it illegal makes it dangerous. That's the most dangerous thing of it, is when you're in a place that it's illegal and you have to go to an underground market with some sketchy guy who's selling all kinds of other drugs that now you have access to as well. It should be controlled. It should be sold at a dispensary like all the states that have legalized it. I believe there's like 22 states that have done it. And almost the entire West Coast has done it. The Northeast has done a lot. Minnesota just passed it. And pretty soon it's going to be federally legalized as well. But the problem is not that the NFL is no longer suspending Randy Gregory. It seems that the Broncos, although they're not suspending him, they can still fine him because it remains among the league's banned substances, so it's subject to fines. So right here, you have a situation that is very contradicting. On one hand, you're saying that you're not, going to be suspended. It would be similar to taking it from a Schedule 2 drug to a Schedule 3 drug. It's like, we're not going to arrest you anymore. We're going to give you a fine. And that's kind of what the NFL is doing here, where they're saying, look, we're not going to take it off of our bad substances list because it's not legal in every state, so we can't do that legally, probably, right? But at the same time, Randy Gregory could be subject to fines if he uses that. Now, if the states that have legalized marijuana, if those states want to have their own rule where they're not subject to fines for using a legal substance legally in a legal state, then that's one thing. But it looks like the law hasn't been updated to that yet. So the Broncos are named in the lawsuit, although teams don't have any role in the fining of players who violate the league's drug policies. The NFL and the NFLPA substance of abuse policy is collectively bargained and administered by a jointly appointed third-party medical professional. The complaint said Gregory was diagnosed with social anxiety in 2021, with PTSD in 2023. The Broncos and the NFL denied Gregory's request in March 2023 to use dronabinol during non-work hours, according to the complaint. 2 years later, his agent, Peter Schaefer, requested a therapeutic use examination for Gregory, a therapeutic use exemption for Gregory, which was also denied. What's weird is that they're calling marijuana this other drug. I don't know if they thought that, hey, maybe if we don't call it dronabinol. I've never heard, weed called dronabinol. Dronabinol. What is that? We're going to look it up right now. Dronabinol. Okay, dronabinol is a synthetic version of THC. It's a man-made form of THC. Why would you even want the Okay. This is what they did. Of course, Randy Gregory doesn't want to use the synthetic version. But if he is noted on paper to be approved to use a medication that will have him test for THC, that also opens the door to him using marijuana without having to be concerned about testing positive. So I don't think he was actually going to take this dronabinol. I think he was going to use flour and go to the dispensary. But this was kind of his tactic here to instead of asking the NFL for weed, we're asking for Dramamine. It's less offensive, especially to the older generation. Gregory has been fined $532,000 for repeated positive THC tests since March of 2023, according to the complaint. The lawsuit contends that the league's and club's resistance to providing Gregory accommodations due to his disabilities is discriminatory under Colorado law, and he might actually have something here. And this might be one of those that gets settled really quick because if Randy Gregory, it's tough because marijuana, although it's federally legal, it's still not recognized by the medical department. For instance, I could have, let's say I use pain for my leg after my injury. I can't get the VA to pay for weed. I can't do that because it's not federally legal. So he's trying to say that they discriminated by not tending to his medical needs, but I don't know if yet you can say that marijuana and medical are at that stage yet where it'll be recognized for what he's calling it. And Bill said they need to get rid of the rule, but the collective bargain agreement doesn't get renegotiated until March 2031. Dang. So what is the collective bargain agreement? Not sure. I forgot what that is. Is that when they decide what the by then it might be federally legal and it's going to be a whole nother conversation, but um I can see in this case just how tricky it is, and there's a lot of different angles. But we will see. Gregory was a second round draft pick of the Cowboys in 2015. He's played 5 seasons in Dallas, where he was suspended numerous times for violating the NFL's drug policies. He signed with Denver in 2022, but he missed most of that season with a knee injury. He split the 2023 season between the Broncos and Niners, who acquired him in a trade last October. He's got 22 career sacks. He's only appeared in 72 games over 7 seasons. That's crazy. And that's the NFLPA agreement with the owners and the NFL. Okay, thank you for clearing that up, Bill. But yeah, Randy Gregory. I'm gonna keep track of this little lawsuit because I find it really interesting, and I want to know if Gregory does win. The the NFL players are watching and paying attention, right? And this could be a big statement to the NFL if Randy Gregory wins this for how patients moving forward are going to be or not going to be accommodated for a similar request, which I think is right down the road, especially with this being a national story. All right, so a couple more NFL news items. Bill said, if you haven't seen the show, Justin Pugh had the current president of the NFLPA on his net worth show. It's worth a watch. That's awesome. It was after I watched the whole video. He sent me the signed football. It was awesome, and why I'm a Pugh fan for life. I'll definitely check that out. That seems like a really cool thing to have somebody like that on. Really unique. You don't hear a lot of people saying that they're interviewing someone from the NFLPA. That's pretty cool. I wanted to say that the Patriots running back Ramondre Steven, I think, is one of the top 5 running backs in the league. And I don't think he had a great season last year. I don't think the addition of Ezekiel Elliott helped him. I think he's better served as a 3-down back. He's a great weapon in the pass game. He can do it all. He can block. He can run. He's elusive. He's powerful. He has enough speed to take it the distance. He's a very, very good running back. And last year, I was really expecting him to take a step up. And I thought he finished last year probably around, he was in my top 10. And I expected him to jump to the top 5. And with the Ezekiel Elliott thing, it just did not go that way. But I'm not willing to jump off this bandwagon. He was a former 4th round pick. and he's done enough to earn an extension. The running back believes he'll receive one soon. He's telling reporters that he's pretty close to reaching an agreement to stay in New England beyond 2024. And I think that he will. And if the Patriots are smart, they will offer him an extension before he plays week one, because I do expect Ramondre to bounce back, and then he's going to be worth a lot more money. This is kind of the risk that you take as an owner, and this is why I say when a player wants to restructure their contract, it's kind of not fair to the risk that was taken. The reason someone takes a risk is so that they get you at a bargain. You can't then turn around and, change the price tag. We'll see. I will say this about Ramondre. Jared Mayo said today via the team transcript. I think he's one of the best, or excuse me, I think he's one of the better backs in the league. It's no doubt about it. I think over the last few years, it's been kind of tough on him as far as getting started. So I'm excited to see what he does this season. And look, he's earned everything that he gets. He's our starting running back, and hopefully we do get something done. Steven took the compliment in stride, saying, "It makes me feel good." He said this to Ian Rappaport on The Insiders. "Just knowing I got my head coach behind me and all my teammates behind me, and it's something that I agree with. It's something that I've been working so hard for. To see it come to fruition is great. Just don't expect him to be paid lucratively." Stevenson has proven to be a versatile back and a hard runner, displaying a physical size, racking up 2,265 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns over his first 3 seasons. He's managed to find a role as a pass catcher too, 121 receptions, 782 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Stevenson even has a 1,000-yard season to his name in 2022, but that doesn't mean he's going to be paid like a future back, with proof existing in how New England has approached its backfield. But they're moving on. This is a different philosophy, different people. We got to remove everything that we know about the Patriots and give Gerard Mayo a chance to give this team a new identity. In 2023, the Patriots took on veteran Ezekiel Elliott to the tune of a 1-year, $3 million deal and ended up giving the former Cowboys star more carries than Stevenson. Elliott had 184 carries. Stevenson had 156. This is not ideal. And I will say largely this was due to him ending the season on injured reserve with an ankle injury. But even so, I did not think that the Ezekiel Elliott thing, and I think the Patriots would have had a better running game if they didn't have Ezekiel Elliott and they made Ramondre Stevenson a bell cow. That's what I think personally. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, he was all of the stuff that he did at Dallas, and he was kind of dipping, but I could see why it was an attractive pick. Like, oh, Ezekiel Elliott, like he's still got football left in him. Surely he's not done, right? We need all the help we can get. He'll come over here for $3 million. What's the downside? Well, the downside is just that Ramondre was really the vibes were really good. He was coming off a career season, and he was about to take that next step, and you kind of stepped in and you held him back. We didn't know that before, but we definitely know that now. The Patriots replaced Elliott with Antonio Gibson on a 3-year, $11 million deal, and he can fill a similar role if they're attempting the two-headed backfield. But I really think that Ramondre Stevenson should be the guy, right? If he needs to take a breather, that's what he's there for. Throw Antonio Gibson in. But make sure that this is split 75, 80, 20. Yeah, that's what I think. Both those deals are surprisingly cheap. And while an extension for Stevenson will likely exceed those deals in terms of annual value, it could look similar to the deal Gibson signed in the spring. Of course, we're living in the era right now of a depressed value for running backs. I think last season we had a whole segment about it. Running backs just were not getting paid. And it's not really changing this season. Although we did see Christian McCaffrey become the highest paid running back in the league and get extended through 2029, I believe. but the open market just hasn't been a good place for running backs to go, and it's just the way it is right now. And New England appears to be interested in offering another contract that is not great, but oh, what are you going to get on the open market? All right, fine, I'll take it. With this in mind, Stevenson will fetch more than he's making on his rookie deal, but didn't exceed 1.2 million a year until this year, where he's due to make 3. Unless he has a breakout season, his financial ceiling won't flirt with double digits. Only 5 running backs in the NFL are currently making 10 million or more per year. One of those running backs is Cleveland's Nick Chubb, who has thrived under the direction of new Patriots offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. And he said, yeah, well, honestly, I watch all running backs, the smaller ones, the bigger ones, like myself. So I take a little bit of everyone's game, to be honest, Stevenson said when asked about studying Chubb's tape for reference. I see how he runs, how he hits the outside zone. They're a heavy outside zone team in Cleveland, which we are bringing in over here now. So I'm just getting familiar with how it looks. And keep in mind, this is going to be a different philosophy, a different coach, different running style. And we know that Cleveland had a running game. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league for the last, 7 seasons. He's been consistently great. And now New England gets to add that. I think Stevenson is due for a breakout season. It's not going to be shocking to people that are Patriot fans or people that remember how good he was in 2023. But do not be surprised. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if Ramondre Stevenson is at least a top 10 running back this year, fantasy football purposes. And Bill said, I don't know anything about Stevenson other than what you're saying. Fair enough. Fair enough. We talked about the extension that Christian McCaffrey got, and now we're going to talk about the extension that Mike Tomlin got. And I was shocked when I saw this, because when Mike Tomlin lost the playoff game, they asked him about his future as the Steelers head coach. Obviously, he had 1 year left. And they were like, do you think they're going to extend you? You know, you haven't really done anything in a long time. And he just walks away. They didn't say it like that. I'm paraphrasing. And Mike Tomlin just walks out. And this year was set up to be a prove it year for Mike Tomlin. You know, we're getting rid of all the great old coaches that are defensive coaches, but Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season yet. So I don't know if you can throw him in that group, although they haven't won a playoff game. You could make an argument for both. Okay. Mike Tomlin is still one of those coaches where it's like, okay, you're going to fire him. Well, who are you going to replace him with? What's your upgrade over Mike Tomlin? Don't worry, I'll wait. Like you just don't have one. So anyway, you go into this year, it's supposed to be a prove it year, and the Steelers say, no, it's not a prove it year. Mike Tomlin signs a 3-year extension through the 2027 season, which means that Mike Tomlin is going to not be playing for his job this season. And I think it's good if you're a Steelers fan. I do. There's just not a better coach out there. This is what was said by Steelers president Art Rooney in a statement. Mike Tomlin's leadership and commitment to the Steelers has been pivotal to our success during his first 17 years as head coach. Extending his contract for 3 more years reflects our confidence in his ability to guide the team back to winning playoff games and championships while continuing our tradition of success. As the longest tenured active coach in the NFL, wow, I guess so, with Belichick on. Tomlin has defined stability in Pittsburgh. He's never finished with a losing record in 17 seasons. Think about that. 17 seasons, not one losing season. He's led the Steelers to 7 AFC North titles, 7 out of 17 years. I mean, it's not dominate. It's not, domination by any means, but it's pretty good. About, a little less than half. Wait a minute. 11 playoff bids. How many? Seven. Okay, yeah, yeah. So a little less than half. Sorry. But 11 playoff bids and two Super Bowl appearances, winning his first Super Bowl in 2008. And yeah, I guess he did win two Super Bowls. He right? Didn't he beat the Cardinals? No, no, no. He went against Green Bay in 2010. But didn't the Steelers play the Seahawks in 2005? Oh, I think that was I'm blanking on his name right now. I think that was his last year. Mike Tomlin took over in 2006, I think. Let's see. Does it say here when Mike Tomlin took over? 17 seasons ago. So 17. So 2007. Yeah. Okay. Okay, my math is mathing. More importantly, Tomlin has guided the Steelers to respectable contention even when working with a thin roster. And you can't note this, enough because it is really hard. That's why I say 17 seasons, not a losing. It's hard to keep a squad together that's talented enough to win more games than you lose every single year with players. Because if you get really good, you're going to lose all your players. So, yeah, they're not a dynasty, but if you're a fan of a team, it feels good to know that you're a part of a team that's going to most likely win their football games, right? If you win more than you lose, you feel like you have a chance to win every single week, no matter who you play. And you just can't say enough about that. When you don't have that, you miss that. And that's amazing that the fans have had that. If we learned anything from the Steelers in the post Ben Roethlisberger era, it's how important Tomlin's experience and leadership has been in keeping the franchise afloat. That's what made the concern regarding his job both interesting and peculiar following the end of the last season. Another campaign which the coach deserved to be commended despite their lack of fight in the loss to Buffalo. Pittsburgh's a franchise that does not like change when it comes to head coach. Tomlin's the third head coach since the hiring of Chuck Noll in 1969. And despite not winning a playoff game in 7 years, he's proven his worth repeatedly by managing to prevent a catastrophe in the Steel City. Man, 1969. I don't know why I just felt like warm and fuzzy inside. Like I was like home. Just like three head coaches since 1969. Like Mike Tomlin's a part of a just for most people's lifetime. It's just three. I mean, you talk about elite company. It's one thing to have a revolving door at head coach. Three since 1969. It just must be amazing to be one of those guys. Just one of them, right? There's not that many. The Steelers have rightfully done what was necessary to keep Tomlin atop the hierarchy in Pittsburgh with his extension, with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields now filling out the quarterback depth chart following a remarkably productive season. Tomlin and the Steelers have checked off another item. And keep in mind, the Steelers are going back to a different identity. They drafted nasty and tough players. They're going to run the football. They're going to do what Russell Wilson does best, and they're going to run the football. And once in a while, they'll ask him to throw it. But the Steelers are going to be more of what they were when I was growing up. They're not going to be a sexy, finessing team. They're going to be the old school Steelers this year. And that's why I don't think that Justin Fields starts over Russell Wilson, because Justin Fields is that finesse. Russell Wilson is what they need, it feels like. And Bill said Steelers don't change coaches unless absolutely necessary. Not shocked by this extension. And Giants went through three head coaches in like 5 years. I know. That's why I'm just so amazed by that. Three head coaches since 1969. It's like if you wanted to have a dinner, just imagine those three coaches at a dinner. Like the grandfather, the father, and the son. It's like we are 3 generations of Steelers. Um, must just be such a first off, it's a small table, but it must be a really special feeling to belong to such elite, rare company. Just a great feeling, I bet. So that was kind of the news of today. Mike Tomlin getting a 3-year contract extension. And we do have, I wanted to mention one thing. Jaguars Eric Armstrong, Armstead, said something about Trayvon Walker, who was drafted with the first pick last year. And he said he can be the best edge in the league. Jacksonville Jaguars edge rusher Trayvon Walker took a step forward in year 2. He had 10 sacks, and he was finding a better pressure than his disappointing rookie campaign. Trayvon Walker was the first pick, the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago. New teammate Eric Armstead believes the former number 1 overall pick owns the talent to continue his ascent. I think Trayvon can be the best edge in the league. He has that ability, Armstead told Justin Lewis of the Florida Times Union last week. He had a tremendous year last year, and I know he's going to have a tremendous year this year. Walker would need to pass Pro Bowl Josh Allen to be the best edge on his own team. Armstead, who played the last 5 years with former Defensive Player of the Year Nick Bosa, sees Walker as a player who can put it all together to shoot the moon. I think the sky's the limit for him, and I think, like I said, he could be the best edge in the league. He has the mindset, and I think he will be. And keep in mind, this is not a bum, right? Armstead has played with the best rusher in the NFL, in Nick Bosa, and he's saying what he's saying. Now, Josh Allen, he's a Pro Bowler. He's amazing. They locked him up long term this offseason, I believe. If they can really get this type of production out of Trayvon Walker, where even if he's playing at the same level of Josh Allen, like we just saw what a star on the quarterback and a star edge rusher can do in one draft in the Texans. I mean, the Jaguars could have a really, really sneaky good team this year if they can get this kind of production. Imagine they get off to the quarterback really fast. Trevor Lawrence takes another step. They get good production out of the wide receiver they drafted in the first round. They do have 7 games this year against playoff opponents. So they do have a tough schedule up there with Pittsburgh and some other teams. But overall, Walker improved last season. He generated 56 quarterback pressures per next gen stats and upping his QB pressure rate to 12%, up from 10.2 as a rookie. But he still has a lot of room to grow. Adding more counters to his game and diversifying his moves would help Walker improve his pass rush win rate. The addition of Armstead on the inside is also going to help free up Walker. This is going to be maybe a really good defensive front. They're going to get after it. This could be something that we're not talking about enough that is going to really bolster the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. They could have the best pass rushing defense in the league if Walker does end up being that, and Armstead brings that production, and Josh Allen's his normal self. I'm just trying to give him any help any way I can, give him some knowledge, showing him different things that I use and how to break down offensive linemen, Armstead said. Some techniques that I've used throughout the years, and I think it'll be great for him. And even better because I don't have the skill set and athletic ability he has. And this is a guy that's like, look, Eric Armstead, I'm not as athletic as this guy is. I don't have the same skill sets, but I am a technique freak. I am still in this league not because of raw athletic ability, but because I have really invested into my technique, and I'm just playing the game smarter than the people that I'm going up against. And I think he might look at Trayvon Walker as an amazingly fun project because he sees the skill set, he sees the athletic ability, and he goes, man, if I could get him to understand the fundamentals and just become an absolute technician on the field, if I can give him that, this guy has everything. He could be the best in the league. And that's what he said. So you understand why he's saying that. So I do think that there is reason to be optimistic about the Jaguars' defensive line this year. And it's something that we hadn't talked about this entire offseason, but I think it's something that we might notice early in this year is like, oh, Jacksonville's really getting after the quarterbacks. And there's something about a team that gets a lot of sacks. Not only, of course, does it provide negative plays for the offense, which is a given, but the momentum that it provides. There's something about a sack. You're at home, that crowd goes absolutely wild. You're on the road, they're silent. A sack is so much more than just a negative play. It is, it's a game altering play. And if you can get multiple of those moments per game, if you get 4 of those per game, that goes a very long way in this league. That's why edge rushers are paid so high. You need a good edge rusher, you need a good quarterback. And Jacksonville, stay tuned. Veteran cornerback Steven Nelson, a free agent, plans to retire. He played with the Kansas City Chiefs, Steelers, Eagles, and Texans. Max Crosby said he wants to play with the Las Vegas Raiders for a very, very long time. So this might be somebody that wants to be a lifer. Of course, Max Crosby, everyone that follows the Raiders say he embodies what it means to be a Raider. I could see that actually happening. Jets pass rusher Hassan Reddick mums on plans for mandatory minicamp and contract concerns. The Jets commence their mandatory minicamp tomorrow. Whether newly acquired edge rusher Hassan Reddick will be there is up in the air right now. So we will have to wait and see till tomorrow. And this is the duo I wanted to go over. Okay, this is ranking top new wide receiver combos for the 2024 season. Okay, we talked about this one. We talked about this one. We talked about this one. I can't remember if we talked about the Steelers. Okay, so we're gonna do we're gonna say it's Russell Wilson's job to fumble away. So let's just use that. George Pickens and Russell Wilson coming in at number 5 as the best duo. Okay, I think that we're only doing top 5, but Russell Wilson, he's gonna have to find a guy, and now that not George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. Wait, was it Deontay Johnson? Yeah, Deontay Johnson is gone now. Where did he go? I think he went to the Panthers, I think. But now it's going to be all on George Pickens. They did draft Roman Wilson and they have Van Jefferson, but I expect George Pickens to be the guy that's being targeted really often, kind of like Cortland Sutton in Denver. So Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson, and George Pickens. And number 4, Aaron Rodgers and Mike Williams. Now, I think that it's fair to say Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, because technically it's not a rookie duo because Rodgers was there last year, but Rodgers didn't play last year. So I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. And if you're going to be a stickler on the rules, I'll do Aaron Rodgers and Mike Williams. Mike Williams is confident that he's going to be ready week 1. Missing offseason work could put him behind the 8 ball to open up the season. He is turning 30 in October. He struggled to stay healthy for most of his career, including the past 2 seasons. He played only 3 games last year with a torn ACL. But when he's on the field, he is a field stretcher. He opens up the entire offense, and he's a great red zone weapon. And he's playing opposite of Garrett Wilson, So Williams should see a lot of advantages with the double coverage going on Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is coming off an Achilles injury that famously wiped out only all but 4 snaps of his 2023 season. He participated in offseason workouts. He said he's full bore heading into training camp. So he's coming off a major injury. So is Mike Williams coming off of a major injury. Uh, Father Time is undefeated, but if they can put together one more season, they could be a strong duo together. But Garrett Wilson is definitely going to be the leading receiver on this team. And now Patrick Mahomes and Marquise Brown. Okay. You could go back and forth on Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy or Marquise Brown, but Marquise Brown, I think, has a lot of I think the pickup makes sense, and I think he's going to be a good pickup, especially fantasy wise. I don't know if he's going to Rashee Rice is going to face any suspension time, and if he does, Patrick Mahomes and Marquise Brown could build a rapport really quick. Last season, Mahomes guided a patchwork receiver group to another Super Bowl. Of course, Travis Kelce and the Chiefs had a shutdown defense. Marquise Brown has his flaws. The 2019 first-round pick has only cleared the 1,000-yard mark just once, and he spent 3 seasons with the run-first Greg Roman offense with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Then after a trade to the Cardinals, he shared the field with Kyler Murray in just 10 full games over 2 seasons. Not exactly ideal, but this is why I don't care about any of that, because Patrick Mahomes is going to make his receivers better. It's just a fact, right? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, you could always go, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It doesn't really matter. Rashee Rice, we didn't even know who this guy was. And, even towards the end of the season, we're like, I guess that's the number one, and they won a Super Bowl. So what do you think he's going to do with Marquise Brown? And you could make the same case about Kadarius Toney, but Giants fans knew Kadarius Toney wasn't. Nobody that is a Marquise Brown fan or a Cardinals fan is like, oh, thank God you got him off our hands. Like, he's not a problem. He's gonna show up to work. He's gonna do what Andy Reid tells him to do. He's gonna be coached up by Mahomes, and Mahomes is gonna throw him a ton of passes as the clear wide receiver number 2 on the team, or wide receiver 1 if Rashee Rice is gone. So I think this one makes a lot of sense, where on the other hand, you have a rookie that's going to take a little bit of time to get rolling in Xavier Worthy. But I think if you had to pick right now who's going to have more yards this year, Marquise Brown or Xavier Worthy, I think it's Marquise Brown. He's a field stretcher, so he can win deep, and that's something that the Chiefs have been missing since they let go of Tyreek Hill. So we're not even counting the yards he's going to get on just deep bombs. Brown boasts a 61.1 reception expected pass yards on attempt on targeted air yards or intermediate passes per next gen stats. That's in the 10 to 19 yard range. On throws, other distances, he's in the negative. So keep this in mind. Okay. All other ranges, so 0 to 9, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, on all other ranges, he has a negative EPA, but he has a 61.1 reception EPA on the intermediate 10 to 19 yard range. So we're talking a lot of quick intermediate throws, and let Marquise Brown, make a move, use his speed. He's got a ton of speed, and once in a while he can flirt around with that intermediate stuff and then just go right up the seam and take the top off the defense. So it's kind of an easy vision. It's pretty easy to envision Kansas City and Marquise Brown working out. You could even say maybe Xavier Worthy, becomes that guy, and I wouldn't fault you for thinking that. Maybe he does. Number 2, we got Kirk Cousins and Drake London. By all accounts, Kirk Cousins' rehab from his 2023 Achilles tear is going swimmingly, but there will still be questions about the quarterback. He's turning 36 in August and whether he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to be fine. In Atlanta, Cousins finds some of those same uh, issues within their team. The Falcons, though, are, I think you could make an argument that they're even better team than the Vikings had. They have a top 5 offensive line. They're projecting when it comes to new coordinator Zach Robinson's offense, but if it is indeed close to Sean McVay's, it should be similar enough to the one Cousins operated in Minnesota under fellow former McVay assistant Kevin O'Connell. So you have this similarity where them all coming from the Sean McVay tree. It's going to be a little bit of continuity for Kirk Cousins going in there. So maybe not as many growing pains as we're expecting. And the weapons, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson, those are real weapons. That is not chopped liver by any means. London showed over the past 2 seasons he can produce despite Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. I've been saying Drake London is so good. All he needs is a really a capable quarterback, and he can do it. He's amazing, and his production is going to skyrocket this year with Kirk Cousins coming in as the starting quarterback. So you don't sleep on this. If you're thinking about drafting Drake London, but you're like, I don't know, like what if Kirk Cousins doesn't work out? Draft Drake London. If Drake London wasn't a bust when Marcus Mariota, Riddler, and Taylor Heineke were under center, he's not going to be a bust with Kirk Cousins. And then number one, I think this one will be agreed on by everybody, but CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs. CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs. CJ Stroud had one of the best seasons of any rookie ever to play the game. He accomplished everything despite his muddled surroundings. His offensive line was shuffled a ton during the season. You would have barely known given how the quarterback navigated the pressure. The running game didn't provide consistent support until weeks into the season, and every single one of his pass catchers missed games. Nico Collins missed 2 games. Tank Dell broke his leg and missed 6. Dalton Schultz missed 2. In the dim light, the rookie shined, lifting what was mostly an average roster from worst to first in the AFC South. Now, in walks Stefon Diggs, one of the top receivers in the league, fresh off his 6th consecutive season with 1,000 yards receiving. And it says something about Diggs that he just generated 1,183 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns, and we consider it a down year. Perhaps the 30-year-old lost his step. Perhaps his focus has gone away, perhaps. But at the very least, the Texans paid relatively little in their trade to Diggs to find out if he has a 5th straight Pro Bowl in him. When right, Diggs owns the route running ability to beat any corner. He can threaten any level and has the hands to come down with anything and everything. Diggs provides the Texans with a perfect complement to Collins and Dell and gives Stroud a go-to veteran in key moments. Even if you want to view this as a gamble for Houston, giving the apparent bumpiness toward the end of Diggs' tenure in Buffalo, the risk is penny slots level low with the upside of $1 million jackpot. Couldn't agree with all of that more. There is absolutely no way that this does not work out. I know that people have their whole thing about Diggs and pouting and is he a team player, all of that. It doesn't matter because CJ Stroud is the leader of this team. It's not Stefon Diggs. And I think the vibes are good enough where it's going to at least work out for 1 year. And that's really all they need to. And they can reassess at the end of next year if they want to continue this. But I think this is going to be a good year for CJ Stroud. I think Stefon Diggs is going to have similar production that we saw in Buffalo with the Texans. And I think Nico Collins is going to emerge as maybe a top 10 receiver in the league. This could be a Puka Nacua Cooper Kupp situation where you just have 2 very good receivers. T. Higgins Jamar Chase. Just you don't have to pick. Sometimes it's let's just have two great receivers on the field. That's what the Texans are going to have this year. So those are going to be the best new quarterback wide receiver combos for the 2024 NFL season. CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs coming in at number 1. If you guys have made it this far in the episode, please hit the like button. It helps me with the algorithm as I try to start this channel and get it rolling here. If you haven't seen our other podcast, The Only Football Podcast, you can check that out on YouTube. We'll be going live tomorrow night, and we'll be back with Rick. You can follow me on X at NFL with Kyle, and you can comment on this video. I did post some shorts that I'm working on. I'm going to be posting another short after this episode of some of the interviews that I've been doing. If you're a Broncos fan, definitely check out Interviewing Broncos Country. I've done 9 interviews from people in multiple countries, all diehard Denver Bronco fans, and it's just been just an amazing time to get to starting actually building a little traction for real of Bronco fans out there that are just looking for other Bronco fans to be in community with, to know, oh, when we lose a game, I can go to this channel and, be that place. And, I know myself being the only Broncos fan in my family, it's something I never have. And the people I've been interviewing have been saying, yeah, that's something I don't have either. So I'm just happy to be a small part in bringing Bronco fans together, and NFL fans for that matter as well. But thank you guys for tuning in to the podcast, and I will look forward to seeing all you guys tomorrow at the Only Football Podcast. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Got your comment here, Bill. Good show, Kyle. Appreciate that, Bill. And I will see you guys tomorrow at the Only Football Podcast.